As a medicine person, the blood flowing within me can cure all poisons. In my previous life, I fell in love with the physician Gu, who came to Tianshan to gather herbs, and I eloped with him down the mountain without a second thought. He treated me with utmost tenderness, saying my blood was a gift from heaven that should not be confined, and he charmed me into believing he was my destined one. But when his childhood sweetheart Ruby was poisoned by a rare toxin, he tied me to an alchemy furnace and pierced my entire body with 99 silver needles. Burning in the flames, he collected the blood I shed while comforting his beloved. Vivi, you were born to be a medicine, capable of extending the life of my Ruby. It is your supreme honor. Be good, don't cry out, or the potency will be lost. I was refined alive for 7 days and 7 nights, watching helplessly as my blood drained away, turning into pill after pill. He fed the pills to his Ruby, curing her illness. On the day of their wedding, they even used my remaining ashes to craft a teacup, drinking from it daily to flaunt their unwavering love to the world. Reborn into a new life, I returned to the day of the elopement. Gu was waiting for me at the foot of the mountain, but I turned and walked into the 10,000 poison cave. I offered myself to the monster, said to be eroded by toxic gas and rumored to devour human flesh and blood. The pain of the flames scorching my skin felt as if it had been carved into my very soul. 99 silver needles pierced through my entire body, guiding my blood toward the furnace's core. Gu stood outside the furnace, holding a long jade spoon, gently stirring my gradually melting flesh and blood within the cauldron. Ruby, pale and pitiful, leaned against him in his embrace. Reed, she's screaming so terribly. I'm scared. Gu held her even tighter, his voice carrying a tenderness I had never heard before. Ruby, don't be afraid. This is her honor as a medicine person. Be good, close your eyes, it will be over soon. He then looked at me, his brows slightly furrowed. Vivi, stop screaming, it will affect the potency of the medicine. My throat had long lost its voice, only able to emit a hoarse, mournful whimper. I looked at him, the man who once combed my hair and painted my brows, who said my existence was a gift from heaven, not a cage, who promised to show me all the splendors of the world. It turns out, the splendors he wanted to show me were the embellishments of their love. After I turned to ashes, at the moment my consciousness faded, I saw him refining a golden elixir from my flesh and blood, carefully feeding it into Ruby's mouth. Suddenly opening my eyes, I halted my steps just as I was about to descend the mountain and pulled back. I turned around and without hesitation ran toward the forbidden area of the back mountain, the 10,000 poison cave. Inside the 10,000 poison cave, miasma filled the air, and poisonous insects were everywhere. Inside dwells Theo Wen, the world's top sword cultivator, who is said to have been corroded by poison gas and to devour human flesh and blood. He is afflicted with a rare poison, and only the potent toxins within the 10,000 poison cave can suppress it. Because of this, he cannot take a single step out of the 10,000 poison cave. In my past life, I was refined into a medicinal pill, my soul with nowhere to go, forced to cling to my own ashes. I watched with my own eyes as Gu Qingyu and Ruby used my ashes to make a teacup, drinking tea from it every day, affectionate and entwined. Until Theo Wen broke through the 10,000 poison cave. He struck down Gu Qingyu with one sword and pierced Ruby's heart with another. Holding that small teacup, he said, "Ayu, I'll take you home." Theo Wen found a place with clear waters and green mountains, and personally erected a tombstone for me. After doing all this, he lost the suppression of the 10,000 poison cave's toxic gas, and the strange poison within his body completely erupted. He just sat there in front of my grave, bleeding from all 7 orifices, his life force slowly fading away. Just before his death, a drop of scalding bloody tear slid from the corner of his eye, falling onto the tombstone and burning my soul. Only then did I belatedly realize that while I was risking everything for another man, there was someone, in a place I couldn't see, who loved me deeply. Little girl, a familiar voice, that of Theo Wen, came from inside the cave. My nose tingled with emotion, and all the grievances and regrets from this life and the last surged up in that moment, blurring my vision instantly. It is said by all that Theo Wen, who lives in the 10,000 poison cave, has long been corroded by the poisonous air, becoming neither human nor ghost. But only I know, it's not true. The Tianshan Mountains are cold and desolate. With only him and me, occasionally, I would prepare some food and come to this 10,000 poison cave to chat with him to pass the time. Before my master passed away, he warned me that the human heart is treacherous and I must never go down the mountain. If Reed Jiu promised me a lifetime with one and only one person. I naively believed that he was my destined one. Before deciding to descend the mountain in my previous life, I specifically came to bid farewell to Theo when, at that time, he was sitting on the bluestone at the cave entrance, wiping the sword that never left his side. After hearing my words, he said nothing, only silently placing a bone whistle into my hand. If anything happens, blow it. He said he would definitely come. With just one whistle, he gathered my remains and avenged my deep-seated hatred. In the end, he even gave his own life. In my previous life, I didn't understand what was hidden in his obscure gaze when he handed me the bone whistle. Only now have I finally realized that it was a deeply suppressed, unspoken affection. Theo when turned his back to me. Why so quiet? Has some wild boy from the village charmed you so much that you've lost your voice? There was a hint of jealousy in his tone that I had never noticed before, seeing that I hadn't responded for a while. He finally turned around. When he saw my reddened eyes, a murderous intent instantly surged around him. Did Reed Jiu bully you? I could no longer hold back and threw myself into his arms. I tightened my arms, burying my face in his firm chest, and mumbled, Theo Wen, I'm not leaving. I can't bear to part with you. Theo Wen's body stiffened abruptly, and even his breathing paused for a moment. Only the faint blush that rose to the tips of his ears betrayed his emotions. He pushed me away abruptly, his eyes refusing to meet mine, and made to leave the cave with his sword in hand. I knew that Guy Jiu was no good. Just wait, I'm going to kill him. Are you insane? I'll stand in front of him. If you leave the 10,000 poison cave, you'll die. In the previous life, he was able to break through the shackles of the 10,000 poison cave because I died. With nothing left to lose, he was determined to avenge me at all costs. In this life, I will never let him repeat the same mistake. I look at him. Theo Wen, my blood can neutralize all poisons, so naturally it can suppress your poison. Let me be your antidote. Okay, this time, it's my turn to save him. Theo Wen looks at me deeply, his gaze complex and inscrutable. Vivi, do you know what you're saying? I'm too lazy to argue with him any further. So I directly draw the dagger from my waist and aim it at my wrist, ready to make a cut. His wrist was seized with a terrifyingly strong grip. Don't be reckless, he growled, his eyes filled with undisguised fear and heartache. If harming you is the only way to cure my poison, I'd rather rot in this den of toxins for the rest of my life. Some wanted to drain my blood, yet he regarded me as a treasure, unwilling to let me suffer the slightest harm. My eyes welled up again, and I asked him with a choked voice, then how can I cure your poison? Theo Wen was silent for a long time, his gaze sliding from my face to my lips, finally resting on my hand tightly gripping his sleeve. Actually, his Adam's apple bobbed. There's another way. He paused and didn't continue. I grew anxious. What way? Tell me quickly. He turned his face away, his voice low and hoarse. Intercourse. He said that through the union of yin and yang, with bloodlines merging, my medicinal blood could more directly integrate into his meridians without harming my body, and the effect might even be better. I stood frozen in place, my cheeks burning hot in an instant. Theo Wen, seeing that I hadn't moved, turned away. Forget it, pretend I never said it. Actually, this 10,000 poison cave is quite nice too. I grabbed his sleeve, my head nearly buried in the ground from embarrassment, my voice as faint as a mosquito's hum. I'm willing. Theo Wen's lips curved into a smile. He pulled me closer, forcing me to look up at him. Are you sure? If you save me, then I am yours. We will be bound together for life, and you won't be able to shake me off. I didn't dare look into his burning eyes, only nodding frantically. The next moment, my body felt weightless as Theo Wen scooped me up into his arms. I gasped and instinctively wrapped my arms around his neck. He stepped deeper into the water, chuckling softly in my ear. No time to waste. Lest my little medicine person changes their mind. Theo Wen was insatiable, as if trying to release all the suppressed emotions from these years, pulling me in again and again. It wasn't until noon the next day that I finally managed to get up, supporting my sore and weak waist. He is still asleep. And I don't know if the strange poison in his body has been alleviated, but his complexion is much rosier than usual, and his tightly furrowed brows have relaxed. I quietly got out of bed. Planning to return to my own courtyard to change into clean clothes, unexpectedly, I saw Reed Gu and Ruby Yu at the courtyard entrance. Upon seeing me, Reed Gu quickly came forward to greet me. "Vivi, I waited for you all day at the foot of the mountain yesterday. Why didn't you come?" His hand was about to touch my arm, but I turned away in disgust, leaving him grasping at air. Reed Gu's hand froze mid-air, his expression wounded. "Vivi, what's wrong with you?" His deeply affectionate demeanor. If I hadn't been literally refined to death by him once, would likely have drowned me in his false tenderness once again. Ruby Yu behind him coughed twice at just the right moment, leaning weakly and bonelessly against Reed Gu. She spoke in a faint, breathy voice. "Sister Vivi, yesterday Reed stayed up all night waiting for you. As soon as dawn broke, he rushed up the mountain to look for you, afraid something might have happened." Watching their perfectly coordinated act, I felt nothing but a churning nausea in my stomach. "I won't go down the mountain anymore. You all go ahead." Reed Gu looked stunned. "Why, didn't we agree that you would come down the mountain with me? Are you still holding a grudge over what happened last time, a few days ago?" Reed Gu had also brought Ruby Yu up the mountain to gather herbs. Somehow, Ruby Yu accidentally knocked over a candle holder, and the fire ended up burning down my pharmacy, which was filled with rare medicinal herbs. The flames soared into the sky, and both she and I were trapped inside. Reed Gu came in and saw me at a glance, but when he heard Ruby Yu's cries, he immediately turned around. He only left me with one sentence. "Vivi, hold on, Ruby is frail, I'll save her first." The flames nearly licked the hem of my skirt, and I barely managed to crawl out through the window, utterly disheveled. Looking up, I saw that Reed Gu had already rescued Ruby Yu, holding her tightly and whispering words of comfort. After the fire was extinguished, the rare and exotic plants collected by my family for generations turned into ashes on the ground. Reed Gu said, "Since we're going down the mountain anyway, there's no need to worry about these things. In my past life, I was truly foolish as a pig, thinking Ruby Yu's actions were just an unintentional mistake. Now that I think about it, it was clear that he had ill intentions toward me all along." Reed Gu's voice pulled me out of my memories. "Ruby is like my own sister. If anything were to happen to her, I would never forgive myself. Vivi, you're the most understanding person. You won't blame me, will you?" I couldn't be bothered to engage in their hypocritical politeness. I said, "I'm not leaving. Can't you understand plain language?" Reed Gu grew anxious. "Vivi, are you really willing to be trapped on this Tianshan mountain for the rest of your life? It's cold and lonely here. What is there to hold on to? Besides, the 10,000 poison cave in the back mountain is home to Theo Wen, a monster who devours human flesh and blood. How could I possibly rest easy leaving you here alone?" Hearing the word monster from his mouth, the warmth in my eyes instantly dropped to freezing point. The monster he spoke of is the only person in this world who has ever treated me with genuine sincerity. I stared at him. "Reed Gu, do you truly want to spend the rest of your life with me, or do you have ulterior motives?" Reed Gu's eyes flickered for a moment, but he denied it outright. What nonsense are you talking about? My feelings for you are as clear as day." Upon hearing this, Ruby Yu glared at me with a sinister look, then suddenly started coughing violently, even coughing up a trace of blood. Reed Gu was immediately drawn to her, his face full of tension and heartache, completely forgetting about me. Leaning in his arms, Ruby Yu gave me a weak smile. "Sister, you're so fortunate to have Reed's concern. Unlike me, born with a weak constitution, I can only be a burden to him, a deadweight." Reed Gu quickly comforted her, the tenderness and affection in his eyes something I had never received. "I'm too lazy to watch these two putting on an act any longer." So I turned around and wanted to head back inside. Reed Gu, however, pulled out a small white jade porcelain bottle from his sleeve and handed it to me. "Ruby isn't feeling well, so I'll take her down the mountain first. If you don't want to leave yet, you can stay a few more days. I'll come back to pick you up in a couple of days." He lowered his stance, his tone full of concern. "But I am always worried about you. This is a special incense I made to ward off miasma, which can repel poisonous insects, snakes, and ants. Keep it with you, just in case." I stared intently at the porcelain bottle in his hand. In my past life, he gave me a bottle just like this. I believed him. I placed it by my pillow every day and fell asleep each night breathing in its fragrance. Little did I know, this was not any kind of incense to dispel my asthma, but clearly an incense to lure the soul. The fragrance would gradually erode my consciousness, making my entire body weak and my bones and muscles sore. By the time he tied me to the alchemy furnace, I didn't even have the strength to resist. Read GU, seeing that I wouldn't take it, forced it into my hand regardless. Take it, be good. After he turned and left, without a moment's hesitation, I flung the white jade porcelain bottle aside with all my might. To prevent Reed GU from coming after me again, I simply packed some daily necessities and moved into the 10,000 poison cave. Little did I expect that I had just escaped the wolf's den only to fall into the tiger's lair. Theo, when, once he had tasted meat, found it hard to resist. He, on the other hand, looked radiant every day, his energy and spirit improving day by day, while I, poor thing, had to get out of bed every morning with trembling legs. That day, while I was still in a deep sleep, I felt warm kisses falling densely upon me. A jolt of alarm shot through me, and I immediately realized something was wrong. Before he could press his body against mine, I rolled off the bed with a sudden, sharp movement. The old hen in my yard said she's going to lay an egg today. I have to go back and check. I made up a random excuse, grabbed my clothes, and threw them on. Theo, when propped himself up on his arms, leaning over the edge of the bed to watch me, his dark eyes filled with undisguised disappointment. All right, then come back early. I mumbled a vague response and fled in a panic. Just as I reached the gate of my small courtyard, a figure darted out from nowhere and grabbed my wrist. Vivi, where have you been these past few days? I've been looking for you for quite some time. Reed GU had dark circles under his eyes and looked anxious, pulling me along as he said, let's hurry down the mountain. No more delays. My heart skipped a beat as I suddenly remembered. Today in my past life was the day Ruby U's condition worsened. I watched him warily, forcefully shook off his hand, and stepped back to put 3 paces between us. Reed GU gritted his teeth, the gentle facade on his face barely holding together. His eyes were pained, yet his voice remained tender. Vivi, Ruby, she's been poisoned. With bloodshot eyes and trembling, he pleaded, only you can save her. I know drawing blood will harm your health, but Ruby can't hold on much longer. He took a step forward, gazing at me intensely, and promised word by word, don't you like me? If you're willing to save her, I swear. Once she fully recovers, I'll immediately marry you with a grand procession. The exact same words as in my previous life. In my past life, it was these words of his that deceived me, making me willingly draw a bowl of blood, even though Ruby U had already recovered from her illness. She continued to feign sickness and play the victim in front of him, coaxing him to draw blood from me again and again, until I was completely drained and exhausted. I looked at his sincere and earnest expression and found it utterly ridiculous, letting out a cold laugh. What does it have to do with me? Reed GU, you approached me from the very beginning just for my blood, didn't you? You and Ruby U are deeply in love, yet you pretend to be devoted to me. Want me to save her? Dream on. Reed GU's hypocritical mask shattered piece by piece, revealing the ferocious truth beneath. Vivi, I had intended to be gentle with you, he said with a sinister smile. Since it's come to this, don't blame me. Before the words had even finished, he suddenly threw a handful of white powder at me. I was horrified, holding my breath and stepping back hastily, but I still inhaled a trace of it through the tip of my nose. As the world spun around me, I felt all my strength drain away. My vision went black, and I completely sank into darkness. When I woke again, what greeted my eyes was that familiar alchemy furnace that had burned me for 7 days and 7 nights. How could this be? How could I have ended up at this point again? Even after being reborn, boundless despair instantly engulfed me. Creak, the door of the dark room was pushed open, and Reed GU entered carrying a row of silver needles. He walked up to me, picked up the longest one, and gestured toward the position of my heart. Vivi, don't blame me. I'll be very careful and won't make it too painful for you. The sharp pain of the cold needle piercing deep into my flesh made my vision go dark in waves. The image of my previous life, being burned by raging flames and having my blood drained drop by drop, overlapped with the present, and I could hardly distinguish past from present, just as Reed Gu picked up the second silver needle, preparing to insert it once more. Boom! The thick wall of the secret chamber was suddenly blasted apart by an immense force. Amid the flying debris and dust, a figure shrouded in a chilling, sinister aura appeared like a ghost. Theo Wen's gaze swept across the room. And when he saw me tied to the alchemy furnace, my face deathly pale and blood dripping from my wrists, his crimson pupils abruptly contracted. The aura around him surged violently, almost threatening to devour the small, dim chamber. A sword gleam sliced through the air, so fast it left only a blur. Reed Gu's wrist, holding the silver needle, suddenly blossomed with a spray of blood, and the long needle clattered to the ground with a sharp ring. He didn't even have time to see what had happened before excruciating pain seized him, and he staggered backward with a scream. Theo Wen didn't even glance at him, turning his sword to easily sever the chains that bound me. The cold iron chains shattered link by link, and my body went limp, falling into a firm yet trembling embrace. Theo Wen picked me up in his arms, his movements careful and gentle. Only then did Reed Gu see who had arrived. Horrified to the point of forgetting even the pain in his wrist, Theo Wen, how did you get out? Aren't you afraid of dying? When he saw the intimate posture between me and Theo Wen, the possessiveness in his eyes almost became tangible. Let go of Vivi, she's mine. Theo Wen lowered his gaze, looking at him as if he were a noisy ant. Yours. His voice was soft, yet carried a murderous intent as cold as ice. Another flash of cold light, and Reed Gu's other hand tendon was instantly severed. His hands dropped weakly, the excruciating pain contorting his face, and genuine terror finally flooded his eyes. Reed Gu shouted at me through the pain. Vivi, come here quickly, he'll kill you. He's a monster. I looked coldly at his wretched state. Go over, so you can drain my blood again. Reed Gu, furious and humiliated, snapped. So the reason you won't come down the mountain with me is because you've hooked up with him. Do you think Theo Wen is any good? He's afflicted with a strange poison. Isn't he after your blood too? Seeing me unmoved, he put on that deeply affectionate expression again, his voice so gentle it was nauseating. Vivi, I just need a little, just a drop of blood. Once Ruby is better, I'll marry you right away. I'll take you to settle in Jiangnan, the place you've always wanted to go. And we'll watch the flowers bloom through all 4 seasons. Okay, even now, he still wants to bewitch me. I snuggled deeper into Theo Wen's warm embrace. Let's ignore him and go quickly. But Theo Wen's sword was already drawn, and he said, wait until I kill him. Reed Gu's face was deathly pale as he scrambled and stumbled toward the gap in the shattered wall, vanishing from sight in the blink of an eye. Theo Wen held me and did not give chase. I knew he didn't want to leave me alone here. Once I was sure Reed Gu had fled far enough, I quickly broke free from his embrace, nervously grabbing his hand and checking his body up and down. Are you okay? Let's hurry back to the 10,000 poison cave. What if your poison flares up? Theo Wen turned and pulled me back into his embrace. His grip so tight it felt as if he wanted to press me into his very bones and blood. He buried his head in the crook of my neck, his voice hoarse and trembling with the aftermath of a near-death experience. I'm fine. I've been fine for a while. I just thought that living with you in the 10,000 poison cave would be nice, so I never mentioned it. It's you. He tightened his arms, his voice filled with lingering fear. If I had been a moment later, I don't even dare to imagine. This fearless man, who isn't even afraid of his own death, is trembling for me at this moment. The heart that had been suspended for 2 lifetimes finally settled back into place at this moment. I gently patted his back, comforting him and also comforting myself. Back at the 10,000 poison cave, Theo Wen fetched clear water without a word, dampened a cotton cloth, and gently wiped the bloodstain on my chest left by the silver needle. The gloom between his brows was so thick it seemed almost impossible to dissolve. Does it hurt? He finally spoke, his voice terribly hoarse. I shook my head, took his slightly cool hand, and pressed it against my face. It doesn't hurt anymore. Reed Gu's skill. I didn't break it thoroughly enough. I leaned in and kissed his tightly pressed lips. His gaze flickered slightly, the fierceness in his eyes fading a bit, replaced by tenderness. I changed the subject. How did you find me? Theo Wen released me, took my hand. and pointed to the red string on my wrist that he had tied there at some point without my noticing. The red string was intricately woven, with a small, smooth jade bead dangling from it. He then raised his own wrist, where an identical one was tied, twin beads. One can sense the presence of the other. A faint, almost imperceptible curve lifted the corner of his mouth, yet his gaze was terrifyingly serious. I'm afraid that one day you might not want me anymore and run away. This way, no matter where you are, I can find you. Reed Gu staggered back into the courtyard, the smell of blood mingling with the scent of soil. Looking utterly disheveled, the excruciating pain in his wrist made his vision go black in waves. Ruby Yu saw this and hurried out to meet him, her face full of anxiety. She grabbed Reed Gu's arm and asked bluntly, "What about Vivi Du's blood? Did you get it?" Reed Gu's eyes darkened, and his brows furrowed tightly. She showed not a hint of concern for his condition. Ruby Yu, seeing that he didn't respond, shook him, inadvertently jostling Reed Gu's injured area. Reed Gu gasped sharply in pain. Only then did she notice his limp, hanging hands and the shocking bloodstains on them. The urgency on Ruby Yu's face instantly turned to horror, her voice sharpening. "Brother Reed, your hand. What happened to your hand?" Reed Gu's face was deathly pale, his voice filled with resentment. "Theo Wen severed the tendons in my hand and took Vivi Du away." "Theo Wen?" Ruby Yu raised her voice. "How could Vivi Du have left with Theo Wen? What about me? What about my poison?" Reed Gu couldn't make sense of it either. Vivi Du was as innocent as a blank sheet of paper. In the past, a few sweet words from him were enough for her to give him her whole heart, but now, it was as if she had become a different person. All his usual tricks had lost their effectiveness. Seeing him fall silent, Ruby Yu's eyes reddened, and tears began to roll down her cheeks. Sobbing, she frantically searched for the wound medicine. As she bandaged Reed Gu's injury, she said in a tearful voice, "Brother Reed, it's all my fault. If it weren't for me, you wouldn't have gotten hurt like this. I want to take good care of you too, but I'm poisoned now and can hardly take care of myself. My heart is willing, but my strength falls short." She wiped away her tears, her eyes glinting with venom. It must be Theo when using some kind of dark magic to bewitch Sister Vivi. Sister has always been so innocent. How could she have ever encountered such wicked, unorthodox methods? She lifted her tear-filled eyes, looking pitifully at Reed Gu. "Brother Reed, Sister Vivi Du must still have feelings for you. Right now, she's the only one who can save me. Could you go and find her again, please?" These words precisely soothed the frustration and doubt in Reed Gu's heart. Yes, it must be so. Vivi Du loved him so much. How could she just stop loving him so suddenly? He recalled the icy look Vivi Du gave him at the end, and his heart grew restless again. She was just a little girl raised in the mountains, naive and inexperienced in the ways of the world. She was merely blinded for a moment. Once she suffers enough by Theo Wen's side, she'll naturally come running back to him in tears, begging for his forgiveness. By then, he would surely make her realize who her only reliance was. In the first few days after returning to the courtyard, Ruby Yu indeed took great care of Reed Gu with all her heart. But this illusion of sharing both joy and hardship didn't even last 10 days. Ruby Yu's poison began to flare up uncontrollably. "I'm in severe pain. Yet I still have to take care of Reed Gu." Her inherent petulance and impatience could no longer be concealed. Ruby Yu held the medicine bowl, her brow furrowing deeper and deeper, her tone shifting from initial sympathy to impatient urging. "Brother Reed, you need to think of something. Go find Vivi Du. If this drags on any longer, I'm really going to die." Reed Gu sat by the window, staring blankly at his trembling hands. He had tried to find it, but the terrain of the 10,000 poison cave was complex, shrouded in miasma, and he couldn't even get past the outer perimeter. Time and again, he returned empty-handed, only to end up in a sorry state. Ruby Yu, seeing him remain silent for a long while, raised her voice sharply, "Speak up. Are you just going to stand by and watch me die?" She slammed the medicine bowl heavily onto the table, splashing the liquid and staining the surface. "Didn't you say I was your life? Now that I'm about to die, you can't even bring back a single drop of blood." Reed Gu was, after all, once a master of medicine. However, the once steady hand now trembles like a sieve, let alone accurately targeting acupuncture points. He can't even hold the needle steadily. He was already irritated by this matter. And upon hearing Ruby Yu's words, his eyes were filled with malice. He interrupted her impatiently. Enough. Ruby Yu was taken aback by his shout. You're yelling at me. I must have been blind to have fallen for a useless person like you. He turned around and ran out, for the first time. Ri Ji-yu felt a strong sense of annoyance. If it weren't for Ruby Yu, how could he have ended up in such a state today? Ruby Yu had run off in anger that day and had not returned for several days. Ri Ji-yu initially tried to tough it out, but without anyone to take care of him, even getting a sip of hot water became a struggle. The room soon filled with a sour stench, mixed with the smell of the medicine on his wounds, making it nauseating. That night, a storm raged outside the window, with thunder and lightning. Ri Ji-yu was ultimately afraid that something might happen to Ruby Yu, so he rushed out frantically to search for her. He searched all the places where Ruby Yu might have gone. But there was still no sign of her. Just as he was about to give up, he caught sight of Ruby Yu outside an unfamiliar mansion. She was holding an oil paper umbrella, smiling charmingly as she spoke to the man beside her. He recognized the man. It was Zheng Xian, the physician who had always opposed him and tried to outdo him at every turn. Seeing the two of them walking hand in hand into the courtyard, Ri Ji-yu felt a surge of blood rushing to his head. A burning rage of betrayal shaking him to the core, he stealthily crept to the base of the wall, pressing close to a half-open window. The light from inside the room cast flickering shadows on the window paper. Soon after, the faint rustling of fabric could be heard from within. Mingled with Ruby Yu's coy protests and soft gasps, Reed Gu's mind exploded with a roar, his rationality shattered. He violently pushed open the slightly ajar door. His eyes bloodshot as he stared at the two intimate figures inside. What are you doing? Ruby Yu was startled by his ghastly appearance, and her face immediately filled with undisguised disgust and impatience. How did you find this place? You just won't go away. Ri Ji-yu was trembling with rage, pointing at her, but couldn't even form a complete sentence. You all. Ruby Yu rolled her eyes and shrank closer to Zheng Xian. What's wrong with us, Ri Ji-yu? I only put up with you because I thought you could save me, but it turns out you really are useless. Now your hands are ruined, and you're a wreck. Do you really expect me to stick around with such a worthless thing? Brother Zheng Xian said he has a way to save me. Stop being an eyesore here and just get lost. Reed Gu's eyes were wide with fury, roaring as he tried to lunge forward, but now he was nothing but a powerless cripple. Zheng Xian merely raised his hand contemptuously and pinned him firmly to the ground. He dragged Ri Ji-yu outside and flung him harshly into the cold, muddy water. Outside, the rain is pouring heavily, and thunder rumbles. Zheng Xian looks down from above, leaning against the doorframe. His lips curled in undisguised mockery. Ri Ji-yu, take a good look at yourself now. Don't you look like a stray dog? He pauses, his voice dripping with the arrogance of a victor. Get lost, Ruby is mine now. The icy rain pelted Reed Gu's face mercilessly, mixing with mud and leaving him in a wretched state. The ruined tendons in his wrist throbbed with intense pain, yet it was nothing compared to the agony tearing through his heart. For Ruby Yu, he had exhausted every means, even going so far as to destroy Vivi Du, who had given him her whole heart and soul. But in the end, he too had become a used and discarded piece of trash. How ridiculous! In the curtain of rain, he vaguely saw Vivi Du's face again. Not that cold and resolute face, but the girl from the beginning on Tianshan Mountain, who would blush at his words and foolishly offer all her treasured possessions to him. Heh. Ri Ji-yu lay in the mud, a broken laugh escaping from his throat. As he laughed, tears mingled with the rain and streamed down his face. Regret, like poison, instantly corroded every inch of his bones and blood. Theo Wen's poison had been completely cured, but for some reason, he still lingered in the 10,000 poison cave, refusing to leave, claiming, "This is where we fell in love, it holds sentimental value," until one day, I was crouching at the entrance of a cave feeding a passing wild rabbit when he drifted over quietly from behind me, startling the happily munching rabbit into a swift disappearance. It was eating my food. Theo Wen's tone was unfriendly. I was baffled. How did the wild fruits on this mountain become yours? He confidently pulled me into his embrace, resting his chin on my shoulder. What you pick is mine. Feeding it means using my things to please another living creature. I was left speechless by his bizarre logic, and it took me a moment to realize that he was actually jealous of a wild rabbit. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry, so I pinched the hand he had wrapped around my waist and said, all right, it's all yours, and I'm yours too, okay." Only then did he seem satisfied. Planting a kiss on my cheek, there's nothing better than a peaceful life like this. I thought that after the incident where Reed Goo's hands were crippled, he would definitely not dare to come looking for me again, unexpectedly, since he couldn't enter the 10,000 poison cave. He ended up guarding outside for several days and nights. I had no intention of paying him any attention, but I couldn't stand him calling out to me every day outside, which was extremely irritating. Theo then drew his sword and said, "I'll go kill him." I stopped him. "Never mind, I'll go take a look." I saw Reed Gu with disheveled hair and a haggard face. If it weren't for the vaguely familiar outline of his face, I would hardly have recognized him as the once radiant and captivating man who had mistakenly won my heart. When he saw me, a glimmer of light suddenly flashed in his dull eyes. "Vivi," Reed Gu called out my name, scrambling and stumbling as he rushed toward me. Theo then instantly rose to his feet, blocking my path, his entire aura turning icy cold in an instant. Reed Gu trembled but still refused to leave. His knees gave way, and he actually knelt straight down in my direction. "Vivi, I was wrong. I really know I was wrong." He was crying and sobbing. "I was used by Ruby, and I lost my mind for a moment. I regret it, but I truly love you. Will you forgive me?" He lifted his head, looking both pathetic and ridiculous. I walked past Theo then, approached Reed Gu, and looked down at him from above. "Regret?" I let out a light laugh, a laugh devoid of any warmth. "What do you regret? Hurting me, or ending up in this miserable state?" Reed Gu, stop pretending. Search your heart and ask yourself, if you had succeeded, if you had used my blood to save Ruby, would you have regretted it? No, you wouldn't. What you regret isn't doing something wrong. It's never about hurting me or trampling on my feelings. You regret losing, becoming a worthless failure with nothing left. He was left speechless by my words, just shaking his head repeatedly, tears streaming down even more fiercely. "No, that's not it, Vivi. Give me another chance, I swear. I will never let you down again, and I will treat you well." Reed Gu struggled to reach for the hem of my clothes. I took a step back, avoiding his outstretched hand. "Reed Gu, wipe that look off your face. Every word you say disgusts me." He seemed stung by my words, freezing in place as all color drained from his face. Just then, a staggering figure rushed out. "Save me, please save me." Ruby collapsed in front of us, wailing incessantly, but at this moment, her face was as pale as paper, with dark blood seeping from her eyes, ears, mouth, and nose, emitting a putrid smell of impending death. When Reed Gu saw her, his already turbid eyes instantly filled with bloodshot rage, and his entire demeanor turned frenzied. He lunged forward abruptly, his hands tightly gripping Ruby's slender neck. "You bitch! How dare you come back?" Ruby was being choked so hard that her eyes rolled back, and she gasped hoarsely in her throat, her hands clawing wildly. "Brother Reed, I was wrong. Zheng Xian lied to me. He had no way to save me." She struggled to squeeze out a few words, tears mixing with blood as they streamed down her face. Please beg Sister Vivi. Ask her to save me." Okay, watching this dog-eat-dog farce unfold before my eyes, I suddenly found it incredibly amusing. I moved closer to Theo when, grabbing his sleeve, my voice tinged with just the right amount of trembling and grievance. "Reed, look at her. Even now, she still wants my blood." I timidly looked at Reed Gu, imitating Ruby's former demeanor, speaking softly and weakly. That one word, Reed, seemed like a spell, instantly igniting the last thread of reason in his mind. Reed Gu turned his head to look at me, his eyes filled with the ecstasy of something regained and the madness of a desperate gamble. "Vivi, don't be afraid, don't be afraid. I'll make her disappear from your sight forever. I'll never let anyone hurt you again," he roared, as if making a promise to me, and as if trying to convince himself. He grabbed the barely conscious Ruby from the ground and dragged her toward the cliff not far away. Ruby was dragged by him, leaving a pathetic trail on the ground. She finally realized that Reed Gu truly intended to kill her, and fear instantly consumed her. She struggled desperately, clutching Reed Gu's legs with both hands and feet, screaming shrilly, "No, "Brother Reed, let me go, I don't want to die, I was wrong." But the more she struggled, the more intense the madness on Reed Gooseface became. He dragged her, step by step, to the edge of the cliff. Ruby Yu held onto him tightly, the two of them entangled. Their balance unsteady, a piercing scream tore through the sky as Reed Gu was dragged down with her, both of them plummeting into the bottomless abyss. In the wind, the echoes of their final cries seemed to linger, but soon, everything fell into silence. I stood quietly in place, gazing at the mist-shrouded cliff below. The hatred and resentment of past and present lives seemed to vanish like smoke, dissipating with their fall. A warm hand covered my eyes, blocking everything from view. The familiar scent of Theo when enveloped me. "Let's go." His voice was low and steady, carrying a reassuring strength. "We haven't finished that game of chess yet. Don't even think about trying to weasel out this time. The past is like smoke, all merely a prelude. And the story between me and Theo when has only just begun. The end, that's all for the first story. Don't go away. The next one is even more exciting." I refused the aunt's request to switch seats with me on the train home for the new year. She actually spread rumors in front of everyone on the train, asking where a young girl got so much money to buy a first-class seat, implying it must have been earned through immoral means. Yes, I was about to argue, but the train's announcement suddenly came on, saying a child had gone into cardiac arrest and urgently needed medical personnel to help. I am a doctor, thinking I need to hurry to save someone, but unexpectedly, the woman grabbed me tightly and insisted, "Where is the attendant? This woman is smoking on the high-speed train. Arrest her quickly." Because of her false accusation, the child missed the best time for rescue. By the time I arrived, the child had already passed away. The woman shamelessly said she did nothing wrong. "So what if they died? It just frees up a seat, so we can switch spots." But what she didn't know was that the child who died from an incurable illness was her own precious grandson. It takes 8 hours on the high-speed train to return to my hometown. For the sake of my backside, I reluctantly bought the more expensive first-class seat. The day before, I worked overtime performing a surgery until dawn and haven't slept a wink since. I was so tired that I kept yawning. And as soon as I sat down, I started dozing off. I had just sat down and hadn't even warmed the seat when someone gave my head a hard slap. "Get up and change seats. We're in carriage 11. I was dozing off and got my head slapped for no reason. Anyone would be annoyed by that. I held back my anger and looked up to see who it was, finding a middle-aged woman with a young woman holding a baby behind her. "Sorry, I won't switch. Carriage 11 is second class, and this is first class. Carriage 11 is 8 carriages away from here, and every carriage is packed with people, luggage, and crowds filling the entire aisle. Going there is no different from trekking through mountains and rivers." But the middle-aged woman wouldn't let it go and said somewhat sarcastically, "Our family of 3 wants to sit together so we can look out for each other if anything happens. What's the big deal if you, a young person, have to make a small sacrifice, at most? I'll give you 20 yuan extra, money." Hearing the aunt's words, I couldn't help but laugh in frustration. The price difference between first class and second class is over 500 yuan. Isn't 20 yuan a bit too little to make up for it? If you wanted to sit together, why didn't you just buy 2? First class. Poor but pretentious. I was already in a bad mood, and this just made me want to slap this woman. "What's wrong with you, you brat? Do you care that much about a little money?" Her words made me roll my eyes, and I snapped back angrily, "If you don't care about money, then why don't you compensate me? What's with the sarcastic remarks? Isn't it just because you're poor? You bitch, you're the one who's poor. You're destined to be a penniless wretch your whole life. I have plenty of money. It's just that someone as heartless as you doesn't deserve to have my money." The middle-aged woman, in a fit of rage, wanted to curse at me a few more times. But she was quickly stopped by a young woman beside her. Then, the young woman turned to me and asked apologetically, "Wei, sorry, we bought the tickets too late and could only get one first-class seat. My mother-in-law is elderly and has difficulty walking, and I am traveling with a child. So I thought a first-class seat would be more spacious. How about I pay you the full price for a first-class ticket?" Seeing that the young woman had a good attitude and I could get the money for free, I was about to agree. But when the aunt heard the young woman offering money, she immediately looked exasperated, as if frustrated by her lack of resolve, and anxiously tried to stop her. What money? Don't today's young people have any sense of dedication? Didn't your parents teach you to respect the elderly and care for the young? Or do you not have parents at all? After being scolded like that by the aunt, the anger I had just suppressed flared up again, and I plopped back down into my seat. Anyway, you must have no parents. I'm not switching. How dare you speak like that, you little brat, showing no respect for your elders. I'm going to teach you a lesson on behalf of your parents today. After saying that, the aunt actually rolled up her sleeves and tried to hit me, but luckily her daughter-in-law stopped her. Oh my, Mom, don't make a scene. She's not obligated to switch with us. Her daughter-in-law looked on the verge of tears. It seemed this old lady is used to being domineering and arrogant outside. What do you mean by no obligation? Young people should give way to the elderly. Otherwise, what's the point of their existence? If every young person were as selfish as her, wouldn't society fall into chaos? Seeing this unreasonable and troublesome woman, I really couldn't be bothered to argue with her, so I called the flight attendant. But who would have thought that instead of backing down when the flight attendant arrived, the woman actually played the victim first? Waiter, look at the kind of people you sold the tickets to. Even on the bus, young people offer me their seats, but you sold me a high-speed rail ticket like this, expensive tickets, and you don't even screen the buyers. Fix this immediately, or I'll file a complaint against you. The flight attendant who was called over visibly looked displeased, but still checked my ticket and patiently explained to the woman, saying, no one is obligated to switch seats with you. She purchased her ticket and has the right to her seat. Please understand. After hearing the flight attendant's explanation, the woman still refused to back down and even became more unreasonable, pointing her finger at the flight attendant's nose and, cursed, fine. You're all birds of a feather. Our family of 3 must sit together. If you don't resolve this issue for me, I will file a complaint and take you to court. The flight attendant also lost patience and directly called the police, saying sternly, passenger, the high-speed train is about to depart. Please do not disrupt the order here. If you insist on doing so, then I have the right to ask you to leave the train to avoid interfering with its normal operation. What do you mean? I paid for my ticket, and you still want to kick me out? Is there no justice in this world? The woman was about to plop down on the ground and start wailing. But she was startled by the approaching police and trembled all over. Oh my, stop messing around. Dazzy is still waiting for us to get back. If we can't take this train, we won't be able to buy another ticket. I'll just take Ming Ming to the second-class cabin. With that, the young woman hurriedly left the carriage with her baby as if fleeing. Seeing that the police officer seemed serious, the middle-aged woman's arrogance quickly faded. She sat down next to me with a dissatisfied look, muttering something under her breath. What is she talking about? I rolled my eyes, almost screaming internally. Why did I have to run into such a character? I took out my earphones and played some soothing music as the high-speed train slowly started moving. There are still 8 hours left on this journey. I hope this lady doesn't cause any trouble. I really just want to get some good sleep right now. But obviously, this woman wasn't going to let me off so easily. Just as I was starting to feel a bit sleepy, I heard a sarcastic remark from the side. I just ran into a rude young girl, and I have no idea where she got the money to buy a first-class seat. After hearing that, all my sleepiness vanished. I took off my headphones, frowned, and looked to the side, only to see that middle-aged woman on a phone call. When she noticed me looking at her, she rolled her eyes and continued speaking as if no one else was around. Yeah. She looks glamorous and is decked out in designer brands, but who knows how many men she slept with to get all that. I immediately got angry, snatched her phone and hung up, then demanded, what do you mean? Do you know that spreading rumors is illegal? The middle-aged woman wasn't angry that I snatched her phone. Instead, she looked at me with an understanding expression. Are you getting worked up? Did I hit a nerve? I bet you just graduated, right? Girls like you usually end up as office clerks after graduation. An employee or an accountant probably makes at most 3,000 or 4,000 a month. So how could they afford a first-class seat that costs 1,000 or 2,000? All those name-brand clothes must add up to a lot of money, right? Have your parents ever used such nice things? You've made so much dirty money, and you don't even know how to show some respect to your parents, if you ask me. A girl like you might as well have been drowned in a pond at birth. I'm so furious I could go over there and slap that woman hard across the face, but reason quickly calmed me down. Although she was the one with a sharp tongue, if I resorted to physical action, I would be the one in the wrong, and she is a troublemaker, which would only work against me in every way. The best way to deal with slander and defamation is to avoid falling into the trap of self-justification and instead use the same tactics to spread rumors back at them. So, I also imitated the aunt's sarcastic manner, giving a thorough once-over to the items she was wearing. Yo, how come the stuff you're wearing looks pretty expensive too? Could it be that you stole several old men's welfare payments to buy them? After hearing my words, the woman's face changed, and she angrily shouted, "What the hell are you talking nonsense about? Do you believe I'll slap you?" Just then, a girl sitting in the front seat turned around with her phone and said, "Auntie, I've recorded everything you just said. Spreading rumors can lead to legal consequences. All of you, this is outrageous. You only know how to bully a poor old woman like me." The aunt was furious, her eyes filled with resentment and anger, but in the end, she didn't dare say anything more. I thanked the girl in the front seat and then closed my eyes to rest again. For the next 2 hours, although the woman was still constantly on the phone and cracking sunflower seeds, she didn't bother me after all, and I couldn't be bothered to pay her any attention. I slept for 2 hours like that, then got up and went to wait in front of the restroom. The person in front had just come out, and before I could even prepare to go in, I was shoved hard from behind, almost losing my balance. Taking a closer look, I realized it was that same middle-aged woman again, who was now holding a cup of instant noodles and about to get hot water. Seeing me glare at her with displeasure, she said with a shameless expression, as if a dead pig isn't afraid of boiling water, "What are you looking at? Who told you to be so fat and block the way in the middle of the road?" I was so angry my heart was trembling. But when nature calls, I had no time to deal with her right now. As soon as I entered the restroom, I placed my bag on the sink. Suddenly, a puff of smoke shot out from the bag. Startled, I opened the bag and found a lit cigarette lying inside. Though I had no idea when it got there. "What's going on?" I screamed in fright. I don't smoke at all, and there wasn't even a lighter in my bag. How could a lit cigarette possibly be in there? No time to think. The tissues and fabrics in the bag had already caught fire. I tried to put it out with water, but it only produced thicker smoke. Soon after, the smoke alarm in the restroom started blaring loudly, and the next moment, the high-speed train began to slow down noticeably until it came to a complete stop. Then, there was a loud banging on the door. "Is smoking going on inside?" Smoking on the high-speed train is illegal, and serious offenders may face criminal detention. Please open the door and cooperate with our investigation. What the hell is all this? I was on the verge of tears but couldn't cry. I quickly opened the door and saw the flight attendant standing sternly at the entrance. "I really don't know why there were cigarettes in my bag. I don't even smoke," I tried my best to explain, but the evidence was overwhelming, and for a moment, I was at a loss for words. The passengers, already irritable from the long journey, grew even more anxious when the high-speed train came to a stop. Some of them even started cursing at me. "What kind of cigarette are you smoking? If you're tired of living, go get one from the crematorium. My wife is about to give birth. If you make me late, I won't let you off the hook. Hurry up and arrest her. What if the high-speed train catches fire? How dangerous would that be?" Just then, that middle-aged woman walked over with a smug look on her face and clicked her tongue at me several times. "TSK, TSK, TSK, still claiming you didn't do it. So you're secretly into smoking and drinking, huh? Daring to smoke on a high-speed train. I think you're just asking for trouble. Waiter, call security right now and have this little brat thrown in jail." Looking at her utterly arrogant expression, I suddenly remembered how she had bumped into me earlier. The aisle was wide, so why did she have to bump into me? Of all people, the zipper on my bag wasn't closed properly, so it would be easy to slip something inside. With that thought, my expression darkened as I turned to the flight attendant and said, "I suspect someone is trying to frame me. I demand to see the surveillance footage." The flight attendant nodded and prepared to take me to the crew room to review it. Sure enough, the woman panicked and said in disbelief, "There are cameras on the train, of course. For the safety of the passengers, there are cameras in every carriage. Please come this way." Before the attendant could finish speaking, the woman suddenly blocked the door. It seemed to cover up her guilt. Her voice suddenly grew louder. "What's the point of checking the surveillance? It's obvious this little brat is just stalling for time. The evidence is clear. You should arrest her, right away, Auntie. Whether I'm innocent or not will be clear as soon as we check the surveillance. Your attempts to stop me make it hard for us not to. I suspect you're involved in this matter." I narrowed my eyes and looked the woman up and down, making her feel uneasy, but she still stiffened her neck and shouted sharply, with her mouth being the toughest part of her body, "If you broke the law, just admit it, don't try to frame me. Security, hurry up and arrest her. What if she runs away?" The aunt blocked the doorway, and for a moment, the few people had no way to deal with her. Just then, the broadcast suddenly blared urgently, "Is there any medical staff on the train? A child needs emergency care." As a doctor, when I hear there's an emergency, I must step in to help. But just as I was about to head to the back, someone grabbed my clothes tightly. "What? Feeling guilty and trying to run away? Are you? Let me tell you, that's impossible. You've wasted so much time. You must kneel and apologize to everyone on the bus." The woman shouted arrogantly, clearly paying no attention to the earlier announcement. "I told you it wasn't me. Someone needs emergency care right now. I'm a doctor. Let me go immediately. I'm extremely anxious. In an emergency situation, every single second is crucial. A doctor. You, don't make me laugh. Can just any random person get into a hospital these days? I think you're just trying to use this opportunity to jump off the train and escape legal punishment. Haven't you had enough? I have a medical license." I was just about to take out my medical license from my bag, but I realized that little booklet had long been burned to ashes. "Where is it? Can't find it now. Can you? Fraud. Don't even think about running away. Didn't you just say that spreading rumors and slander carries legal consequences? You're the one spreading lies. I'm putting a cigarette in your bag, and I'm going to sue you right now." The woman held onto me tightly, and I struggled desperately to break free. In the midst of the tussle, my clothes were nearly torn, almost exposing me, so I had to free one hand to hurriedly cover my chest. But the woman still wouldn't let go. She actually pinned me down beneath her. And no matter how much the people around tried to reason with her, she refused to let me go. She has a large build and almost crushed me to the point of suffocation. "Let go of me. If a life is lost because you didn't save it, could you live with yourself?" I was being crushed and nearly suffocating, using all my strength to shout, but if someone like her had a conscience, she wouldn't have so naturally demanded that I switch seats with her in the first place. So what? If he's dead, he's dead. No one's life is more important than mine. I've been wronged, and you must give me an explanation, either pay, compensation, or go to jail. This moment is the most powerless moment of my life so far. Just then, a series of hurried footsteps echoed through the carriage. Just then, a young woman holding a child ran over, crying, "Doctor, is there a doctor here? Please, save my son. He's dying." I struggled to lift my head and look, and I was almost shocked out of my wits. Wasn't this woman the daughter-in-law of that middle-aged lady? So, the child in need of emergency help is that woman's grandson. Sure enough, the weight on me vanished instantly, and I only heard a heart-wrenching scream from behind. "My grandson! How could it be my grandson? Hurry, save him, save my grandson." The woman got up and rushed over, snatching the baby from the young woman's arms. Gasping for breath, I struggled to stand up by leaning on a nearby chair and said, "Put the child on the ground and let me take a look." But the elderly woman seemed not to hear, holding her grandson and hopping anxiously, continuously calling out, "Grandson, grandson, wake up quickly, how can I live without you?" As if she believed that by doing so, she could wake her grandson up. I said, "Put the child on the ground quickly, stop holding him and shaking him like that, you're going to kill him," I shouted anxiously, but the woman acted as if she were deaf and just wouldn't do as I said. Finally, her daughter-in-law snapped, slapping her across the face and screaming hysterically, "Did you hear that? Put Mingming on the ground right now, let the doctor check him." This finally jolted her awake, and she stood there in a daze. The young woman hurried over and held her son in front of me, begging me repeatedly to save her child. The child's face had already turned blue, and he was barely breathing. I immediately began performing CPR and artificial respiration on the child. Not daring to waste a single moment, the car started up again, and we had to get off at the next high-speed rail station and be rushed to the hospital. But only I knew that the moment I first saw this child, I realized his chances of survival were very slim. Now, all the efforts being made are just for the sake of showing the family. If only we had acted a little earlier, perhaps things wouldn't have turned out this way. At that moment, a bystander voiced exactly what I was thinking. This old hag is such a jinx. What was she doing blocking the doctor earlier? Now look, the trouble has landed on her own grandchild. Are you satisfied now? Who would have thought that the old woman still didn't seem to realize she had done anything wrong, and instead continued to stubbornly argue? How was I supposed to know it would be like this? It's all because of this wretched woman. If she hadn't set fire to her medical license, I wouldn't have been unaware that she's a doctor. It's all her fault. If my grandson isn't cured, I won't let you off the hook. From the moment she got on the bus, she kept making disruptive noises inside the vehicle, and just now she pulled this stunt of a thief crying "Stop thief," which has already stirred up public anger. Before long, everyone in the carriage was cursing at this woman, scolding her until she shrank into a corner, trembling with fear. The previous arrogance and domineering attitude were completely gone. Time passed minute by minute. It should have taken only 10 minutes to reach the next station, but because the elderly woman falsely accused me of smoking, it was delayed by over 40 minutes. The child's face had gradually turned from ashen to purplish black, and even the faintest breath could no longer be felt. Finally arriving at the high-speed rail station, we were quickly transferred to the nearest hospital. As I had expected, even though I performed CPR and artificial respiration continuously from start to finish, I still couldn't save him. Come, the doctor at the hospital looked at the child's condition, shook his head, and sighed, "It's too late." If only he had been brought in earlier or CPR had been performed sooner. The young woman collapsed to the ground as if struck by lightning, her eyes filled with tears of despair. Seeing her like this, my heart ached with a sharp pain. She shouldn't have to endure this. The child could still be saved. I let out a long sigh and was just about to leave when I heard the woman's heart-wrenching scream, "Grandson, wake up, my dear grandson. Don't leave your grandma behind." The woman was crying bitterly, and as she looked up and saw me, her eyes suddenly filled with intense hatred. "Is it because you, this wretched woman, didn't do your utmost to save my grandson that this happened to him? He is the treasure of our family, grandson. It was you who killed him, and I want you to pay with your life." After saying this, the aunt charged at me like a madwoman, trying to hit me. Fortunately, she was promptly stopped by the hospital security guards. Seeing her in this state, I just felt utterly exhausted. "It was you who kept stopping me. If you had let me go for emergency treatment earlier, your grandson wouldn't have died. Your grandson was killed by you. You're the murderer," I said, word by word. The old lady actually knew the truth in her heart, but she just refused to admit it. Shifting the blame onto others was, for her, the most correct choice. She still wanted to charge at me, but the next second, her daughter-in-law went crazy and started fighting with her. "It's all your fault. Why did you have to grab the doctor and not let her leave? Now look, your grandson is gone. Are you satisfied? Are you satisfied? How much longer are you going to keep harming our family? Will you only be satisfied when you've driven me to my death?" The young woman had already broken down, and it wouldn't be surprising if she did something extreme now. But the old woman still stubbornly refused to admit her mistake. "How dare you, you little wretch, side with outsiders and scold your mother-in-law? Did I want things to turn out this way? If you ask me, it's all because this wretched woman refused to switch seats in the first place. If she had obediently agreed, I wouldn't have grabbed her, and my grandson wouldn't have died. She's the one who killed my grandson. I'm going to call the police and have her arrested." Speak of the devil, and he appears. The next second, the police arrived. The elderly woman seemed to have spotted a savior. She walked over, tightly grabbed the police officer's hand, and pointed at me, speaking sharply, "Officer, quickly arrest that despicable woman over there. As a doctor, she treats human life as worthless, set a fire on the high-speed train, and caused the death of my precious grandson. Hurry and sentence her to death. It would be best to have her executed by 1,000 cuts." Under the auntie's excited gaze, the police officer took out the handcuffs, but the handcuffs were meant for the auntie. "Why are you arresting me? I'm a law-abiding citizen." "I'm a law-abiding citizen," the auntie shouted in shock, We just reviewed the surveillance footage from the high-speed train and found that you lit a cigarette and placed it in that lady's bag over there, causing the high-speed train to be forced to a halt. Your actions have seriously endangered social order and the safety of others' lives. Come with us, the police sternly reprimanded. No, it wasn't me. I didn't do it. You've got the wrong person. You bitch. It's all your fault, you bitch. I'm going to kill you. At that moment, the middle-aged woman looked like a fierce ghost from the abyss, lunging at me with claws bared, as if she wanted to tear me to pieces. But how could she be a match for the police? In no time, she was restrained by the officers, ready to face further legal consequences. After giving a statement at the police station, I was completely exhausted. Watching the lonely figure of that young woman, I wanted to offer comfort but found myself at a loss for words. In the end, I left quietly and boarded another high-speed train home. I thought this incident would be just a small episode in my life, and I would never see this infuriating, old woman again. But the very next year during the new year, on my way back from a late-night snack, I found a drunk man lying in the snow. Hey, are you okay? Wake up. I quickly walked over and patted the face of this drunk man. It was a snowy night, and the temperature had dropped to more than 20 degrees below zero. A thin layer of snow had already covered his body. The next second, he let out a groan. I thought he had woken up and was about to breathe a sigh of relief, but he unconsciously took off his own clothes. Oh no, he's hypothermic. If we don't take some emergency measures, he might freeze to death in this snowy night. Quick, get him into the car. I'll take him to the hospital. My friend and I worked together to lift the drunk man into the car. Just as I was about to get in and turn on the air conditioning, another piece of bad news came. The air conditioning seemed to be frozen and wouldn't blow any hot air no matter what. It was pitch black outside, and everyone had gone home to rest, so there was no one around to help. There were no warm clothes or medicine in the car, so the only option was to step on the gas and get him to the hospital as quickly as possible. But fate was not on my side. On a narrow, unavoidable road to the hospital, a large truck loaded with cabbage was stuck right in the middle, unable to move. I was frantic and honked the horn several times, but no one came out to move the vehicle. Out of desperation, I had to get out of the car and shout toward the nearby area, "Whose car is parked here? Move it away quickly, or someone might get killed." I nearly shouted my throat hoarse, and after a long while, someone finally emerged slowly from the side. "What's all the noise about? Can't you let people sleep at night? Is there no other way to go?" The person walked into the area illuminated by the car lights, and when we saw who it was, both of us were stunned, our jaws nearly dropping in shock. This person, isn't she the woman who was making a huge fuss on the high-speed train last year? They say hatred lasts longer than love. And we both recognized each other almost instantly. Seeing me, she was so angry she gritted her teeth. "How is it you wretch? My grandson was killed because of you. My daughter-in-law ran away, and I was even sent to prison because of you. How dare you? Show your face in front of me." After hearing her words, I was absolutely furious. Even after being in prison, how can she still be so clueless? All these consequences are the result of her own actions. "I don't have time to argue with you right now. There's someone in my car who needs emergency care. Please move your car out of the way," I said anxiously. "Way," but the woman just gave a mocking sneer, as if she didn't care about the matter at all, using that excuse again. "How come you're so lucky that every time you meet me, someone is about to die? I'm telling you, if you want to get anything from me, go back in time and give me back my grandson's life first." Sometimes, people can really be so angry that they burst into laughter. "What do you mean by giving his life back? Do you still think I'm the one who caused your grandson's death? If not, then what? You must have recognized it was my grandson and didn't do your best to save him just to get back at me. Maybe you even did something sneaky to make things worse. My grandson was killed by you. Otherwise, he was perfectly healthy. So why did he die as soon as he was in your hands?" Her unreasonable arguments made me deeply feel the diversity of humanity. Your grandson was not healthy to begin with. He had congenital heart disease and should have stayed in the hospital for a while. But you insisted on taking him out. Forget it. I don't want to discuss this with you anymore. Could you please move your car right away? There's really someone behind my car. I'm dying. If you don't believe me, come and see. I opened the door and beckoned the woman to come over, but she stood firmly in place. her eyes filled with disdain. "I'm not going. Who knows if the moment I step over, you'll grab me, throw me into a car, kill me, and dump my body. People like you are, full of evil schemes." Suddenly, her eyes darted, and she continued, "I can move the car, but you have to compensate me, including the death compensation for my grandson, the lost wages for my year in prison, the emotional distress compensation, and the bride price for my son's remarriage. I won't ask for much. Just 1 million from you. Give me the money, and I'll leave immediately." I was stunned. Even a lion wouldn't open its mouth that wide. "I think you're crazy. I've told you all this is your own doing. It has nothing to do with me. Give me the car keys." After saying that, I rushed forward to snatch the car keys from her, but she suddenly collapsed to the ground, letting out a beast-like scream. "Ah, murder! You wretched villain. You killed my grandson and now you want to kill me too, just bullying a poor old woman like me. Isn't it? I'm so unfortunate. My grandson is gone, my daughter-in-law ran away, and I was even framed and spent a year in prison. Why does heaven treat me so unfairly?" Her shout woke up all the sleeping neighbors around, and they all came out to watch the commotion. This kind of person is simply a malevolent ghost. Even spending a few minutes with her can cause severe mental distress. At this moment, my anxiety only, angry, I was on the verge of breaking down. Just then, a friend in the car suddenly shouted at me, "Come back quickly, this person is about to collapse," as if facing a great enemy. I hurried back to the car. I saw that the drunk man's face had turned as pale as a sheet, and his clothes had been removed at some point, leaving only his bare upper body exposed. I quickly rubbed his skin with my hands to warm it up, trying to bring back some warmth, while continuously encouraging him in his ear, "Buddy, wake up, don't fall asleep, think about your wife and kids, think about your parents. They're waiting for you at home." I don't know if my words had an effect, but his eyelids suddenly twitched. I was overjoyed and quickly increased the intensity of rubbing to warm him up. Suddenly, he mumbled something as if trying to speak, and I quickly leaned in to listen. "No, don't save me. What nonsense are you talking? What in the world is an obstacle that can't be overcome? Snap out of it, we're almost at the hospital. Open your eyes," I shouted in a panic, rushing forward to pry his eyelids open. But the next second, a tear slid from the corner of his eye. "My son is gone, my wife has run away, and my whole life has been tormented by my mother. I'm in so much pain. I really can't go on living." I didn't know what he meant by that, only that his voice was growing weaker. "Hey, wake up, don't sleep." No matter how loudly I shouted, it was all in vain. His arm slowly dropped, and there was no more sound. I knelt on the back seat, staring blankly at it all. Just then, the middle-aged woman walked over again, speaking disdainfully. Keep acting. I don't think you're a doctor, you're an actor, aren't you? I'd like to see if someone really died in your backseat." Done. She seemed to have victory in her grasp, reaching into the back seat and slapping the man across the face. But the next second, it was as if she had seen something horrifying. She trembled all over, as if every bone in her body had been fitted with a motor. Dazhi, she called out a name in disbelief. Before I could even process what was happening, she collapsed to the ground and burst into tears. "Dazhi, how could it be you? Dazhi, my son, wake up quickly." Everything that happened before my eyes was too sudden, and I stood there in a daze, at a loss for what to do. At this point, the neighbors who had come to watch the commotion all rushed forward. Seeing that the deceased was someone they knew, they anxiously called out to the elderly woman, "Auntie, hurry and move that truck to take Dazhi to the hospital." But the elderly woman, just like last year in the truck, held her son as if she had lost her mind, only knowing to cry and scream, my son, wake up quickly, you can't leave me all alone." Her behavior made the neighbors extremely anxious, so they snatched the truck keys from her and moved the truck themselves. I quickly got into the car and drove the mother and child to the hospital at full speed. "My child, why is my fate so bitter? Why is there always someone trying to harm our family every day?" Throughout the journey, she kept wailing in the back seat, lamenting the unfairness of fate. Yet, from beginning to end, no one had ever intended to harm their family. On the contrary, I have been trying every possible way to save them. But all of this was thwarted by her single-handed efforts. We arrived at the hospital quickly, but it was already too late. The man had lost too much body heat. making resuscitation completely impossible. The aunt was crying her heart out at the emergency room door, and now, exhausted from crying, she collapsed in the corner. At that moment, the young woman arrived. A year apart had left her face haggard, as if she had aged 10 years. She stood at the operating room door, looking at the body of her once beloved, lost in thought, with no tears and no expression, and that woman, seemingly to cover up her own guilt and remorse, grabbed her ex-daughter-in-law's hair and began to roar at her. "It's all your fault, you wretched woman. If you hadn't left my son, he wouldn't have been drinking alone outside, and he wouldn't have frozen to death out there. I'm going to kill you." The young woman seemed to have lost her soul, standing there motionless, letting the woman beat her. I couldn't stand it any longer and rushed forward, desperately pulling her apart. I could no longer hold back my anger and roared, "Haven't you caused enough trouble? Last year, you stopped me from saving your grandson, and then you blamed me. This year, you're still stopping me from saving your son. And you're blaming others again. Have you ever thought about looking for the reasons within yourself? All of this is your fault. It's all because of you." Startled by my shout, the woman collapsed to the ground like a deflated balloon. Then, clutching her hair, she burst into loud sobs, as if trying to cry her heart out. Exhausted myself, I took a deep look at the emergency room and silently walked away. I thought the matter was over. But I never expected to receive a lawyer's letter a few days later. In the letter, she accused me of causing her son's death due to my delay. Perhaps she also knew that filing a lawsuit on these grounds would absolutely not be accepted, yet she still did it, simply to find psychological solace for herself and shift her own fault onto someone else, so she could suffer a little less from the pangs of conscience. Unsurprisingly, no matter how she sued, it all ended in failure, but she still didn't give up. Somehow, she learned how to livestream and accused me of my wrongdoings in front of a vast audience of netizens. Unaware of the truth, empathized with her pitiful plight and launched cyberbullying attacks online. But she overlooked one thing again, which is that my car also has a dashcam. I posted all the uncut footage of me rescuing the drunk man and being blocked by the woman on the way to the hospital online, and even dug up the high-speed train arson incident that made headlines a year ago. This time, public opinion once again turned overwhelmingly against her, with many netizens who had previously supported her switching sides. "How shameless! How dare you insult such a kind-hearted doctor? If it weren't for you, your grandson and son could have received quick and professional treatment, but you ruined everything. You are the one who killed them. If I were you, I would have been so ashamed that I'd have jumped off a building long ago. How do you have the nerve to live in this world and still slander the doctor here? Dirty water." Soon, she was criticized by netizens to the point of having her account suspended, and even the court refused to accept any of her lawsuits regarding this matter. After that, I finally calmed down for a while. I suppressed my anger and looked up to see who it was, only to find a middle-aged woman, followed by a young woman holding a baby. A young woman killed her former mother-in-law and then jumped to her death. Reading this news, I was stunned for a long time. If you ask me if I regret it, I do not regret it. Saving lives and healing the wounded is my duty, and even if it happened again, I would do everything possible to attempt a rescue. However, I feel deeply aggrieved and angry for that poor family of 3. They should have had a happy family and a bright future. I hope in their next life, they can achieve their wishes. That's all for today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe. If you have any suggestions, feel free to leave a comment below. See you in the next video.